Good morning, everybody. Today's Monday, May 2nd, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's your host, Chris Shafulo, coming to you with some allergies this morning. It's that time of year up here in the Northeast. And my whole family is under the weather with allergies. We don't have COVID, I swear. We did COVID tests. No one has COVID, but we do have allergies. So pardon my scratchy voice. My brother Brian is on the road. He is actually in, where is he? Houston today. He's in Houston working with a hot client. We've had an incredible influx of clients in the last month and a half, both hot and cold. And we've been extraordinarily busy. There's been a lot going on. I'll jump right into it before I turn it over to my partners on the call, who are, of course, Avis and Deborah, coming to you from various parts of the South Carolina office there, the client relations team. Mike Franzak coming to you from lovely Delaware, our director of compliance, and Michael Bouchard, our OPSEC and ATF liaison, coming to you from Virginia, somewhere, right? Somewhere in Virginia. Wilmington, down by Busch Gardens. Aren't you near Busch Gardens? Williamsburg,
Yep.
you know Busch Gardens?
Yep.
Yeah, maybe I'll come visit you. I always like that place.
Sure.
In any event, so in sort of a whirlwind in the last month since we've all gotten together, the acting director, who was Marvin Richardson, the previous deputy director of ATF, who has been there forever, and he's a sweetheart of a guy. He's very industry savvy. He's a lifelong government guy. He's a company man. He got unceremoniously demoted, dumped, removed as director, and an acting director and a DAG from Phoenix is stepping in to temporarily hold that seat while the new director is potentially being vetted by the Senate to be confirmed as the new director. None of this is good news. All bad news. It's not good at all. So the underlying theme or thoughts here were that Marvin is quote unquote too close to the industry. He had some appearances at SHOT Show, which, by the way, is totally normal. And ATF has done that every year, appeared at SHOT Show and spoken and what have you, but was seen by the Democratic regime in office as being too industry friendly. So they canned him because they can do that. They're the government. And they put in a guy who is not industry friendly. And he's holding the seat for the next guy who's not industry friendly. So the amount of inspections have been on the rise. The amount of inspections our clients are undergoing has been on the rise. The number of weird or odd violations that have been thrown at clients are through the roof. I've never seen, I actually said to everybody on the call that I don't want to sound like the Grim Reaper every time we're on this call, but I've never seen it this bad. It's terrible. And but for the hard work of our team, including both Mikes, there would have been a lot more heartache than I think we're currently experiencing as a group, as a team. I'm talking about within FFLGuard. One good thing that I can say is going to come out of this is you all are going to pick up market share by the outliers who don't know what they're doing and are going to be summarily dumped the way Marvin was. You're going to see a lot of people going out of business. You just are. And this cycle is going to continue well past midterms, because once a government regime gets its hooks into an operation, it's, they've started turning the Titanic. They start turning the battleship into a different direction. You don't just turn it right back when you get new guys in office. So we're going to be stuck with this crew for a couple of years, and we have to certainly fortify our defenses. We're working still on two or three actual extraordinary circumstances situations, one in Louisiana, one in Michigan, and one in the upper Northwest out in Seattle. The idea, so everyone understands, is when you trip one of the triggers in the Biden 5 deadly sins, here are the 5 things that if you do, you're going to go to a revocation hearing. It says absent extraordinary circumstances, you proceed to revocation. So we've been presenting these cases as to say, well, we don't need to go to revocation because here's the extraordinary circumstances. And all we've done is create, and Franzak, you can confirm or deny this, what we've done is create like a buzz over there because they don't know what to do with us, right? They're like, okay, well, that's what it says, but we don't know what we're doing and we don't know how to police that and we don't know how to do this. So I've got like, one DIO in Michigan who's entertaining it. I got another one equivocating in Louisiana. The third one up in the upper Northwest doesn't know what they're doing. So we're all over the place, just trying to keep everybody in business. I've been it's probably been the busiest month of my 25-year career, April of 2022. I apologize if anybody has tried to text me or call me or write me. I've been inundated personally. And I just want to remind everybody that the absolute best way to get a hold of anybody is through the help desk, because Avis, Deborah, Brother Brian, they all do an excellent job sort of at least monitoring it to get some answers, a flow of answers. Otherwise, it's been tough sledding for all of us to stay on top of what's going on. That's my 7-minute intro and spiel. I'm going to turn it over right now so I can clear my throat. I'm going to go on to mute in a second, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Franzak, the Director of Compliance, to give you an update of what we've been doing. Geez, Mike, you retired December 31st of 2021, and you couldn't have picked a better retirement date. And I couldn't be happier that you came here. I'll tell you that much. But
I am happy, and I'm happy I'm on the other side. Put it that way. A couple things as we broadcast, as Avis did, I think a few Fridays ago on her Friday blast. The frame receiver ruling was at 2021R-05F was posted as we stated in the Federal Register on 4/26, and that will be effective 120 days later, which is August 24th. So just so everybody knows, that was posted in the Federal Register and does have an effective date. And as it's in here, I have a lot of questions that need to be answered by ATF still. So they're going to be, I'm sure, going to be putting out some more questions and answers for everybody, and we'll keep everyone up to date on that. But right now, this is an ongoing issue with a lot of people, how it affects a lot of manufacturers, that is, mostly, and anybody who, it affects also the individuals who make firearms for themselves. When they send that in to get repaired, the gun's kept overnight, there's a lot of markings that are going to have to be applied for those firearms in the future. But it also, as I think it applies to these new definitions of frame or receiver, apply to any company, I believe, that is in the process that right now that they so to speak manufacture 80% frames or receivers right now. And that definition, I don't think is going to be they're not going to be able to keep maintaining that they don't have to mark those in the future. I think they're going to have to mark them. And I'm getting some clarification from ATF on that for companies who produce some of these frames or receivers right now, because the definitions are pretty specific as they're outlined in these rulings. So it's going to be a big change, I think, coming down here in the future regarding that. I also wanted to go over one thing that we're seeing a lot of issues with right now, and that's it's a simple one, but I want to stress it, but not over stress it too much. Is with regards to your inventory and all the markings that need to be provided within your A&D book, and then on your 4473s. We're seeing a lot of people who are reading the markings right now when we go out, mainly Brian goes out, and we're seeing a lot of people who are taking the markings from the box, not from the gun itself. Can't stress enough, take those markings from the firearm. The entire markings, if it's imported, man, you got your manufacturer, you got your importer information, make sure that's in your A&D book, and make sure what you entered in your A&D book when you receive it is identical to what's on the 4473. We're trying to make sure people understand this, that should be pretty identical. It shouldn't be any different. I mean, there might be a few things here and there. If you write caliber or CAL, that's to me, that's if somebody writes you up for that's pretty sad. That's pretty nitpicky. But just want to stress that right now, especially in today's ATF inspection world, it seems like they're citing everybody for things now. Some people still may not. I will say you got a lot of good IOIs out there, but you also have a lot of IOIs who nitpick too much, and they like to find things, and they think their job is not done unless they find things on their inspection. So they will put little minuscule violations that don't mean anything to you, but don't give them that chance to write that on there. Make sure that the information in your A&D book is accurate per the gun, not the box. And that information on your A&D book is also accurate with your 4473. I want to stress that today so that everybody, and a lot of you on the online are probably saying, I do this already. That's how we do it. Great. But we're finding some, and maybe more so with some of our new clients that are doing this. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing it now, great. New clients, please start doing that correctly so you don't get jammed up in the future. And make sure, going back on that same topic with inventory, when you get guns in, make sure your inventory is accurate too. You don't get yourself jammed up on that. Inventory is huge, because even if you have, it's not one of the Biden deadly sins, but keep in mind, if you have inventory errors and you have to report stuff as missing for a theft loss report, that's just gonna drum up another ATF inspection within a year or two. And then if you have inventory errors again, and it's an increased amount of numbers of missing firearms, that definitely could lead to revocation. And that's a big one right there. So don't give ATF any potential ammunition to revoke your license with. Make sure those inventories are accurate. I think it's big, especially right now, and with what Chris was mentioning before, you've got a new director coming in. They're going to be taking their cues from the Biden administration, and some outlying groups outside of the government have a lot of influence on the Biden administration right now. And I think Chris mentioned that also earlier. So don't give them any fuel to the fire, because he's right. It's going to be a tough few years here unless these elections can spur some change. That's a possibility. So keep that in mind too. And like Chris said, we're not trying to scare you, but we are, because it's the facts. It's a reality. So and he's right. It's a never seen time right now. I don't recall it being like this in my tenure with ATF. I don't like the fact that one of the reasons I left was at the time because I don't like the fact that we were going down that rabbit hole of all these revocations, and you don't have a decision. You can't make those own decisions yourselves. This is what you got to do, and this is how the Biden administration wants to handle it. So, and again, ATF's confused. They're just as confused as anybody else. They don't know what the Biden administration will let go by or not go by. That's probably one of the reasons they might have got rid of Marvin Richardson, is they feel like Chris said, he's too in line with industry, but he has to be. He has to be working with industry, but also working with law enforcement, as Mike Bouchard knows. You got to toe that line. You got to do both. You can't just be one way or the other. You have to help out industry. You have to be the director for law enforcement and industry operations. So I think he was doing that with his background. But unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people outside of the government, outside of DOJ, outside of the White House, who have a lot of influence over the Biden administration. So that's my spiel also for today. But I also wanted to give you that information regarding those A&D book entries and your 4473, so you realize that and can keep that up to date and accurate with that information.
Yeah, that was great stuff. And I just wanted to tag on to that a little bit. I stress to everybody to remember that we have a partnership with Epicor, and we have a partnership with Fastbound. We work with the guys at a couple different places other than that, but those are our main two electronic book and records groups that we work with. And I encourage everyone to connect with either Jared at Fastbound, Sam over at Epicor, because I know those systems work. And I know that whenever I call either one of those guys or their teams really to make changes, they happen instantaneously. And I will tell you, and Franzi, you can confirm this, in the last month and a half, I've never seen more backwards ass electronic record keeping systems than ever before. And my other suggestion is you better, whatever system you're using, you better know how to print out a proper A&D book, because that is seems to be an issue. Hang on one second. Sorry, I had to quiet down a child. But that notwithstanding, everyone better know how to print their A&D book properly, and don't try to point a finger at the electronic book and record or record keeping system, because I'm telling you, these systems probably wouldn't be on the market if they didn't comply with the rulings. And if you can't make it work, it's on you. It's not on pointing a finger at someone else. The electronic record keeping is not going to help you. So know what you're doing, know how to print an A&D record, know how to contact them in case ATF walks in and you need assistance immediately. Get yourselves well versed with how to do these things. It's going to be necessary. So aside from the shameless plugs for my buddy Sam and Jason, there are also other systems out there that are great. We work with the guys at Trident One. They do a good job. I'm trying to think. We have worked intermittently with Celerant, but the ones I'm most comfortable with as your attorney are those two guys. Okay, so that's my piece. Adding on to Franzak, Mike Bouchard, you got something great to add?
A couple of things. The only saving grace about the new U.S. attorney who's come in as the acting director is that's the fourth one that they've had so far, and Steve Dettelbach, the nominee, will be the fifth former U.S. attorney that's occupied that position. The first three I've spoken with at length, they came in with an understanding of the criminal side of what ATF does, but each of those first three said they had no idea about the regulatory portion of what ATF does, nor did they understand or appreciate the sensitivities of that whole operation on the regulatory side. So it's going to be a steep learning curve for those. One advantage of this is any of the ATF employees who have been acting directors is not their guy for justice. So, having one of their own, it's a close-knit thing with U.S. attorneys and the Justice Department. Having one of their own is going to be helpful if we can convince that person to understand what the regulatory side is and the livelihood of the people. Maybe they can talk some sense into justice and the administration to say it's not what you think. It's not just career ATF people saying this. I've seen it firsthand. There's a lot more to the story and the fog of the whole thing. So hopefully, we can convince the new acting director, and if Dettelbach is confirmed, about some of the sensitivities and hopefully put that to work for us. Second thing is gun thefts are up, just a public service thing. If you can let your customers know, majority of guns are being stolen out of vehicles. Just an awareness for public safety, just reminding people that it's common sense to most, don't leave guns in cars, particularly when it's unlocked, but that's the majority where guns are being taken. Other than any questions, that's it.
Thanks, Mike, for that. And I'm just following up. If you look in your chat box, Todd Cotta out at King's Gun Center, who's up bright and early, 3 hours earlier out there. And Jeff Perry has just chimed in. We've seen a lot of this, fellas and ladies, because I see Gina too. So yeah, fellas and ladies, we've seen a lot of this in the last month of inspectors not knowing their own rules. And I will tell you, Franzak has been working overtime to teach them the 32 and a half years experience, or 34 and a half, I'm sorry. I know, I always forget those 2 years. I don't know what happened, but Franzak has done a hell of a job pointing out a lot of different issues that these cats just don't know, don't get, don't understand, didn't know. But like I told Mike Franzak, and Bouchard knows this because we've been together for a long time, that's what made FFLGuard. The very fact that, while Mike Franzak might have been the king of his little fiefdom down in DC, there at that field division, there were 25 other field divisions where they may not have been doing the same exact thing. And FFLGuard came in because we were the glue that was like, yeah, but that's not what's happening here, and not what goes on over there, and this is not the rule, and that is not this, and this is not that. So that gave us a job. And now, Franzak, you're seeing it like front and center, like never before. And this is a perfect example. And by the way, Axis is another system. I work with JW and the Gearfire folks, Chad and Alexis, if you don't know Alexis Tunnel, you're missing out on one of the probably brightest industry leaders out there. She knows her stuff. I've worked with them. They do also listen when we say, hey, you have a flaw in your system, make a quick change. Another good system to work with. But yes, the digital copy issue, Todd, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, we had a client hit the wrong download button and downloaded the CSV file, which is what you need to provide the government when you're going out of business. You need to give them an ASCII2, which is, or ASCII, not ASCII2, ASCII file, which is a CSV file. And so you have to have that accessible or else you're not compliant. But if you're trying to print up an A&D for your inspector on site, you want to do it in PDF. So it's perfectly laid out with all the headers. And if you push the wrong button, then suddenly you're non-compliant, you have 1,000. It's been a nightmare. It's been a nightmare. And that only brings me back to, if ATF is on site, you have to call me. You have to call us. You have to let us know, because the best place to manage their bullshit is in the trenches. If you can manage it in the trenches before it makes it to a report of violations, before it elevates to an administrative action, before a lot of different things happen, or at least so we can announce our presence with authority, it makes a world of difference. Gone are the days of you worrying, oh gosh, ATF is here. I don't want to call FFL. I don't want to call Chris. I don't call FFLGuard because it might piss them off. Fuck them. They're not looking to help you in any way. You have to call us and we have to help you on this end. Pardon my French. Sometimes that's actually not French, that's New Jersey. Sometimes I get out of hand. I apologize.
Hey, Chris, let me add a little bit there. Chris is right. I was telling some people that, I get some calls from, friends of mine who are still with ATF, and they're asking me how it's going, so forth. And I said, for me, it's an eye opener. I could control what was in my areas, and that was in the states of Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and in Washington, D.C. I knew what was going on, how my IOIs were working there. Now I'm seeing what's going on nationwide, and it's an eye opener for me, because I see things, and I'm working with FFLs in other areas like yourselves, and I've had some very interesting conversations with IOIs during closing conferences with people, with DIOs, simple things. Like we had an FFL who wanted to deny his or have him withdraw an application for a type 01 license. And he already had an 01 license. They felt that he didn't need one. I said, well, what are you going to revoke? What are you going to deny his FFL application for? You have nothing to deny it. He's not prohibited. It's not a hidden ownership. He's very truthful. He's still the owner. He just wants to separate some of his activities with his FFL. And they're saying, well, we don't think he really needs one. That's not their determination to make. If he qualifies, the application, he's not hidden ownership. He's not prohibited. Anybody can get a license. And they wanted him to withdraw. And I said, do not withdraw that. File it, keep it in place. Let them send you a denial, because now I told the DIO, you're going to lose. It's a simple one. That's a waste of government time and money to try to deny that. It'll be a simple one for us to argue against. And then I was on a closing conference with a FFL. And the FFL, he had one violation pretty much. That was it. And he was trying to scare him to saying that, no, your license is going to be revoked, because he did a background check, but he released it a day early than he should have, 2 days. And but he got his proceed. And the guy was trying to say that, almost say, you're going to get a notice of revocation. I halted the closing conference. I said, what are we talking about? I said, tell me where it's an instant revocation. It's not one of Biden's 5 deadly sins. And the FFL was saying this guy was getting very, very angry, because he was very condescending in his approach talking to the FFL. And I said, no, per the ATF adverse action policy, it's simply a warning letter at most. And that's all it is. And you have that ability to make that recommendation going forward of your chain of command. And so as I got off the phone, the FFL called me back and said, yeah, he was leaving. And he said, I'm going to recommend a warning letter. Why did he just say that? Why do you got to try to put fear in somebody, try to scare him to say, I can recommend revocation, when in fact, it wasn't going to be that. But I told the FFL, I said, that was just a scare tactic, and that's all that was. And that's pretty sad. And I never condoned that for any of my IOIs that were under me in my divisions. But it's pretty sad to see that that's going on out there. And it's just not one division, it's multiple divisions where you have some people doing it. So keep that in mind. It's a scare tactic a lot of times. That's what they're trying to do. So like Chris said, call us, please call us. So that we can,
we'll tell you the straight, we'll tell you the straight dope. We'll tell you the skinny. We know what's for real and not for real.
Yes.
So since we were 45 minutes in, let me just close it out by saying hi to my Southern Belles.
Hello,
Avis
Christopher.
and Deborah. Hello, ladies. In Brian's stead today. Tell me what's going on in the help desk besides the fact that it is just blowing up on a constant.
Well, we have Deborah that is doing calls to our different clients, trying to make sure everybody's file is up to date. And so please help her. She needs that information so that should something come up, we've got everything right at hand. So please help her with that. The other thing is, please make sure that you're talking to your employees, I suggest on a monthly basis, because you want to remind it and beat it into their heads. What happens when the ATF calls? What happens if the ATF walks in? These are things they should do without having to think. If the ATF calls for a trace, they're taking the information, they're giving it to the correct person. They're not putting it on a sticky note and putting it over to the side. If the ATF walks in and you're not there, that they're calling you so that you can call us. So just make sure that you're telling them those things. Make sure that you're reading our solution of the week and passing that information on to your employees. Don't keep it to yourself. Share those things. Share the articles that we're sending you. It's important that everybody in your store knows what's going on, not just the people at the top.
Agreed, 1,000%. And Deborah, you've done a great job in closing a lot of gaps, opening a lot of files for people, getting powers of attorney. I've seen a lot of activity, so I appreciate all that follow-up work that you've been doing. And that will basically sum up this week, this month. I was wrong. It wasn't 45 minutes. It was only a half an hour, but it was half an hour enough. The next meeting webinar will be on June 13th. So not the first Monday of the month of June, the second. I have a long-standing few-day trip planned with my wife and my boys. And since FFLGuard is my number 2 job, and my number 1 job is husband and dad, so I have to attend to number 1 job, or else I won't have to worry about number 1 job anymore. So that's the most important thing, as it should be for all of you. This is all bullshit. We can get through all this. If you don't have the time for your family, then you're in the wrong line of business. It's not worth it. And I cherish that myself. So I won't be around that first week, but I will be back the second week. We will have our call then. In the meantime, please reach out to the help desk. You're welcome to text me or connect with me the way you may normally do so. Please just give me a little leeway, because I've been really overwhelmed with calls and texts, and sometimes I just miss them, because I am, despite what I tell my sons, I am human, and I do, miss things and make mistakes. So thank you for joining us. This will be available. I don't know when, Avis, but we'll have Brian put it up on the website for everybody. That usually gets the most traction. And we will catch up with you in June. So have a happy Memorial Day. I won't speak to anybody before then. And we'll catch up with you then. Thanks.